Martin Maldonado continues. Will they get Willson Contreras? And a new player that is hot on the market, Arson Judge, is trending and he's on fire. He may be a giant in leaving New York. So let's check this out. Rule 5 draft and 3 different baseballs in 2022. What's going on, Major League Baseball? Let's talk about this and so much more. Locked on Astros now.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Astros, your daily Astros podcast. Here are your hosts, Eric the Man Huysman and Brett H-Town Wheelhouse Chancey.
We are Locked On Houston Astros, and we hope that you join us for a daily Locked On Astros podcast. My name is Eric Huysman. You can find me on Twitter at Eric Talks Astros. You can find the show at Locked On Astros, your team every day. Brett, where can you find you at?
They can find me at H-Town Wheelhouse on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. They can find me at Stros411 on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Always positive. Positive, I love Arson Judge, always Stros.
All righty. Well, you have to excuse the outfit. I just got back from meeting with Jim Crane. I know he's been unavailable all day for Bill Furcus, and he's having to handle the winter meetings all by himself. That's because he's been interviewing me all day to be the next Astros GM. I'm totally kidding. But I just wanted to wear this today, and I thought it was nice. Anyway, guys, thank you for making the Locked On Astros podcast your first listen every day, whether it's on YouTube. Make sure you go ahead and subscribe to us and go ahead and give us a big fat thumbs up, and go ahead and listen to us on Apple, Odyssey, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out the Locked On Astros podcast. And I know there's a lot to talk about. You want to talk about balls for some reason, but we need to talk about Willson Contreras as well, because there's reports that he may be favoring the Cardinals at this point. And I think one of the reasons why is the fact that he can be the everyday catcher. And I don't know if that's what is in the plans for the Astros. I mean, even if they trade away Martin Maldonado, they still want to give Corey Lee or Yainer Diaz some playing time. So that's something we'll discuss a little bit later. Scott Boras had some comments about meeting with the Astros front office. But everybody wants to talk right now about Arson Judge. And John, the reason why we're saying Arson Judge, if you missed it, John Heyman tweeted out that Arson Judge appears to be on his way to San Francisco. And this was later not denied, but it was clarified. And the Giants were like, yeah, we haven't heard back from him yet. We would love to have him, but he's not here yet. So John Heyman had to actually issue an apology. He said he jumped the ball a little bit, or whatever the phrase is. And
jumped the gun.
Jumped the gun. Yeah, I thought that's what it was. I just wasn't sure. But yeah. They did sign Mitch Haniger today, and so You would think that maybe they didn't need Aaron Judge, but they said the whole plan was to get 2 outfielders. So, what do you want to talk about the? I'm not going to say the word again.
About the new baseballs, Eric. You don't have to just use the word balls. You can say baseballs. Come on, man. Okay. You're trying to throw me under the bus to make me look bad here. No. So Mitch Haniger, I'm glad he's out of the division. That's good, because he really kind of has his way with the Astros. So, yeah, Mitch Haniger goes to the San Francisco Giants. And then it's also being rumored by Carlos Baerga on his Instagram page that the Giants are talking to Aaron Judge and Juan Carlos Correa. Now, that would be massive. That would be a huge undertaking. You couldn't criticize the Mets anymore for having 3 players at over $100 million. The Giants would be in that same area. Now, the thing is, Carlos Correa has a familiarity with Pete Petula, who is their GM now from the Astros, player development guy from 16 to 19. So maybe there's a little inroad there. There's a lot of smoke and there's a lot of mirrors, but there's not a whole lot of we don't know what's going on. And what was interesting was I was listening to MLB Network when I was doing some stuff in the garage, after I got home. And the other reporters that were there, and I couldn't see who it was because I wasn't looking at my phone, they were like, I like being accurate, but I don't like always being fast or first, because sometimes when you're too fast in reporting, It's not correct. And it was almost like they were throwing shade at John Heyman, but they weren't calling his name. They were basically um, put out Astros news, not MLB news. Hey, you know what, James Cook? This is our show, so we will report the news as we see fit.
We'll get
So,
to it in a second.
anyways, no, it's all good, dude. Look, we're getting Astros stuff, but it is not just about the Astros right now because what other clubs are doing is very relevant to what the Houston Astros are doing or what they're going to do. And like you mentioned with Willson Contreras, but if you want to start off with the different baseballs that were used in 2022, I think that's a pretty legitimate topic to talk about, Eric. We all know that in 2021, Rob Manfred came out and said there were two different baseballs used in Major League Baseball. And they said because of the COVID shortened season, because of the supply chain, they had a certain number of baseballs that had been produced. And then because they fell short, they had to grab baseballs from 2020. So that gave them two different baseballs. That was their explanation. Okay. All the baseballs are now made by Rawlings. Rawlings is now owned by Major League Baseball. Kind of shady, but they're made in a plant in Costa Rica. Now, fast forward to 2022, and this is what the construction of the baseball looks like with the different cores and the insides. And I don't know if this is the Goldilocks ball or the dead ball, but I can show you this right now. The new ball that came into existence. And here's the thing, if you're listening to this podcast, you need to go watch because I'm showing some graphs that you might want to look at. We have a graph with 4 colors: All-Star Week, commemorative, Yankees, and postseason. And you see the Yankees in the postseason have the highest number of baseballs that are used. The gold for the postseason, these are when the Goldilocks balls were put into play. And as I understand it, because I read through this article and it goes really deep into it. And to summarize everything, there was a dead ball, which was a little bit heavier on its rotation weight, which basically allowed it to be dead. And the other one, which was, it was almost lopsided to where when it spun off the bat, it launched further. And the assumption is because they took baseballs from Yankees games, they took baseballs from the last week when Albert Pujols was going for 700 home runs, they found that this Goldilocks ball was different. Now, what the article does say is this, is they can't conclusively say that the home runs that Pujols or Aaron Judge hit were definitely the Goldilocks balls or the super juice baseballs or whatever, right? They can't say it, but what they can see is that these baseballs were infiltrated into Yankees games, primetime games, games that Major League Baseball wanted to see a different outcome in or wanted to see more home runs. So is Aaron Judge the legitimate 2022 MVP? Yeah, he had a great season. I will make this note because I'm not here to defend the Yankees, Eric, but in the Yankees' defense, the Astros no-hit them in the playoffs. So if they're using this Goldilocks ball or this super juice baseball, it apparently didn't help the Yankees. Maybe it helped the Astros. And then there's like this counter argument Astros fans don't want to talk about. But I think it's funny because Roger Maris died on this hill, and he's like, Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa, they're not legitimate home run leaders. The real home run champion is Aaron Judge. And I'm like, man, that would be a shame if this came out. The problem is, Eric, Major League Baseball has egg on their face in the past for several other things. The 2 baseballs, now there's 3. It's like, just come clean. Just let us know. Like, if you want to put certain baseballs in certain games, just be upfront about it. Just be transparent. You know what I'm saying? Don't like pee on our leg and call it rain. Like be honest with us. We're intelligent fans. Our fan base is intelligent. And I'm sure New York people dismissed it. I had a little fun with it, but it is interesting. 3 baseballs in one season, Eric, and it looks like it heavily favored the Yankees and the postseason in that last week for Pujols.
All righty. So I'm not going to worry too much about it. I mean, what Judge did was impressive, and Albert Pujols had a great career. Only thing I will say is that it was very fishy that Pujols all of a sudden became a home run hitter at the end of the season. So, that's an interesting story. But some other news and notes before we get back to the Astros is that Josh Bell signed a 2-year deal with for $33 million with the Guardians. So
That's right.
that was a pretty reasonable offer for me and deal for a first baseman, I would think. Cody Bellinger, we can finally stop talking about him. He signed a 1-year deal, $17.5 million to play for the Cubs. And then Andrew Heaney is going to sign with the Rangers. So he's going to make their pitching rotation a little bit better. He's going to make about $25 million for 2 years, but it can increase to $37 million with incentives. So there's a lot of deals that happened today, and I know a lot of people are saying that there's a reported deal, or maybe there's 2 reported deals out there for Willson Contreras. I know that what was his name? David Kaplan said that that there's I'm hearing long-term deals, 5 years or more, have been offered to Willson Contreras by both the Cardinals and the Astros. Meeting with the GM and manager near Contreras' home in Florida last week went extremely well. So you have to wonder if partially, I kind of mentioned it in the intro, but does that mean that he just feels more comfortable maybe playing with the Cardinals because he knows he's going to be the everyday catcher, something like that? So what do you think, Brett?
I think right now it is safe to say that he's going to go where he feels the most comfortable because he's been a catcher his whole life. And just to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Simply Safe. And after I talked about this, I want to tell you my take on Willson Contreras and why I think he'll be a Houston Astro. At Locked On Astros, we believe that you should be safe and sound, and your family should feel the safest, especially during the holidays. We want to tell you and give you peace of mind and protection with the #1 rated home security system. Simply Safe right now is offering Locked On Astros listeners 40% off a new security system. So don't put this off. Don't wait any longer. We love Simply Safe because it lets us know, it helps avert break-ins, it has effective technology, and you feel the extra support with the team of Simply Safe. They have clear HD cameras. They have sensors that pick up really just about anything. They have an app on the phone, 24/7 monitoring, and Simply Safe was named the best home security system of 2022 by U.S. News and World Report for a 3rd year in a row. In an emergency 24/7 monitoring, use Fast Protect technology, HD cameras like I mentioned, and at the cost for under $1 a day, less than half the price of traditional home security systems, you can feel safe and sound. And again, the top rated Simply Safe app. So don't miss your chance to save big on my favorite security system. Get 40% off any new system at simplysafe.com/lockedonmlb today. That's simplysafe.com/lockedonmlb. There's no safe like Simply Safe. Now, this is a great question that you pose, Eric, because as a catcher, we know he's turning 30. And as a catcher, as you age, I caught growing up playing baseball. That was my favorite position. In my 10 or 11 years playing, I was a catcher. I never played at a super high level, but I played all growing up until I was about 15, 16 years old. And I love catching. But I can tell you right now, at the age of 47, I don't know if I could have caught as a pro into my 30s or 40s like your Molinas, like your Johnny Benches, your guys that your long-standing catchers. Maybe Contreras is looking to transition from a catching more to a DH and doing other things. Maybe he looked, because this is me basically speculating, but I think the conversation is with the Cardinals, like you mentioned, it's more of a primary catcher role because Yadier is gone. He's out, okay? With the Astros, you have versatility. You get more at bats. Sometimes you can rest your legs. You can be a DH on the bench. You can go to left field, but you can have a spot every day in the lineup,
Yeah, he can
just
do
in a
that with
different
Cardinals
way.
too.
Say again?
He can do that with the Cardinals too. He can
He
DH.
could do that with the Cardinals, right?
Right.
And they do have another young catcher, but I'm just saying with their main guy leaving here, we still have our main guy, and unless you trade Martin Maldonado, which I just don't see them doing, I think Martin's here to stay. I don't think there's any, to me, I'm assuming he's staying. So I'm assuming he's a part of the package. He's a part of the deal. And that's what they have to talk out. But if both clubs have offered him these 5-year deals, here's what you got to say to Contreras in the sales pitch. We understand what the Cardinals are offering you, and they're a great organization. They have a great tradition. But right now, we are in the process of building the best team for 2023. And if you saw how we performed in the playoffs last year, imagine what we could do with you as our left field DH catching all-star. You could be an all-star this year. You could win a World Series. Not only that, we could legitimately talk about winning another World Series in 2024 because the pitching staff you have, the veterans you have here, the culture we've built, and not only that, you can mentor the young guys. So you can take a leadership role. You could be that guy. You could be that all-star and become one of the great Astros that you've ever seen in Minute Maid Park. We think you can help us build this legacy because we're in a golden era. We want you to be a part of it. The Cardinals, they're competitive. They're a good team. But their name is built on tradition in the past. Our name is built on now and the future. That's how I would sell it to Willson Contreras.
All right. I mean, you sold me. I'm going to go sign with the Cardinals. Peace out.
Wait, but the Cardinals? You mean with the Astros?
Oh, were you talking about the Astros or Cardinals?
Eric, I was talking about
kidding. I'm kidding. Anyway, so I know that I think the rumor came out like after the first show I did yesterday about Sean Murphy, and maybe that rumor came out to kind of maybe put some pressure on Willson Contreras to say, hey, we're thinking about moving on. If you don't want to come potentially play with the World Series team, we're ready to have other options. And the reason why Contreras is good is because he definitely has the better OPS plus. He has the better offensive WAR, but his defensive WAR is not as great. But Murphy is a great defender. He can frame it pretty well. He can catch it. And I think overall, if you look at the age difference, Murphy is 28. You have him under 3 years of control. I mean, if you go ahead and sign, let's say Willson Contreras to 19.5 million per year, 20 million, 21, something like that, versus what Murphy's projected get, which is 3.5, 8 million, maybe 13 million in arbitration, something like that. It may be a good deal to go get Murphy because Dusty Baker tends to favor those defensive catchers. And so what I wrote at Gallery Sports, and I still think that maybe there's been a change of philosophy as, yes, we like a defensive catcher, but we need a defensive catcher who can hit above 200. We need a defensive catcher. Yes, the Astros have one of the best pitching seasons that they've had in a long time. Yes, they had one of the best bullpens. And Martin Maldonado, he was a big part of it. Christian Vasquez came in at the end. But I think that if you get somebody like Murphy, then that gives them an ability to maybe move on from Martin Maldonado and have a bigger bat. But I don't think that you'll see both Contreras, Maldonado on the team unless Contreras is just really okay with playing a lot of DH and then a lot of maybe left field. But we know that Alvarez is going to play about 70% of the time in left field. So I think the Astros, and Ferkus kind of said this. He said I can't really say if there's any deals imminent, but we're looking at every possible option right now. And that's what you got to do. And I know Scott Boras was mentioned that the Astros have not skipped a beat. Depending on, they don't have Eric Huysman as the GM yet, so they're just waiting. And until then, they're just waiting on. They're just relying on these other guys to just get the job done. And Jim Crane is the one that's pulling all the puppet strings. So, who knows what happens?
I refuse to call you Eric the GM, so I'm just going to say that.
No,
right
don't
now.
call me that, please.
I'm just gonna set the record straight. Okay, so to kind of go off of what you were talking about, the thing about Sean Murphy is if you look at MLB trade values, I believe his value is like 54.1. It's pretty high, and that's going to require 4 or 5 players, not only because of his value and because his value is based in his years of control. I don't think Sean Murphy is as much of a reality as it is a rumor to drive up other players and stuff like that. I do like how Scott Boras said, like you talked about, how he said that the Astros are great to work with. They know what they're doing. I think Scott Boras has got a great working relationship with the Astros. Scott Boras isn't a hurdle for this ball club. But there are some other names that people are asking about, and you and I even talked about before the show, and someone like Conforto and Nimmo. And if the Astros are considering Conforto or Nimmo, there are two things that I think work in our favor. Number one, the relationship with Boras. And number two, if we don't get Murphy or Contreras, we still do have Martin Maldonado there, and there could be a trade at some time. And I believe Yonder Diaz and Corey Lee can hold that spot well. Here's the thing: if you get Conforto and Nimmo, Eric, having Martin Maldonado's bat in the lineup is not going to be bad, because you have one spot in there that's not a great hitter. That's
I
not a glaring problem, Eric. Eric, you can't listen. There's not a single major league team that has 1 through 9 great hitters. That never happened.
right.
That's not a thing. And you're not going to bring in Nimmo, Contreras, and Conforto. You're not going to bring
No,
all three of those in. If you bring
you
those
can't afford
three,
to.
you can fit you can forget Contreras. You can fit any other catching help. But if they said catching depth or catching is a priority, then you've got to take out some of those names. I think if you get Contreras, Brantley becomes a reality. And I still would like Conforto. I still like Corey Dickerson. I still wonder, I don't know, there are some other names out there that you can look at where the Astros might go. But at the end of the day, it is really chess, not checkers out there. It's not as simple as just getting one guy and not getting another. But Jay Roberts, Maldonado's tweet was actually talking about people that were DMing him on Instagram. And basically, I don't know if they were sending threats, if they were being ugly. But Martin Maldonado is getting a lot of hate right now. And he's getting a lot of hate through DMs. And Michael Schwab even confirmed that on Twitter. And I'm pretty sure he confirmed that because he knows that for a fact. He probably has a connection with him somehow, and that's why he doesn't put stuff out there if he doesn't know it to be true. So apparently Maldonado's getting a lot of shade, and that's why he's like, don't, remember that I don't forget. And
He
there's
said, "How fast people forget. I don't forget."
exactly. And it's not about them looking at other catchers. Look, Martin is the ultimate team player. I mean, he's the one that encouraged them to get Vasquez. He doesn't mind someone else being there. Martin knows his role. Martin knows how important he is. As long as he's here, he's going to play a majority of he's going to catch a lot. And the only way he's not going to catch a lot, Eric, is if he gets traded. And I
Yeah,
don't see them trading him. I don't see him really having value to another club coming in for one season, having to learn a pitching staff. And that therein lies the problem with the catching position. Can Contreras learn? Do the Astros have the right information to give Contreras? Can Contreras become a better defensive catcher? Or is he stuck in that rut? Because he's not a good defensive catcher. He's a major league catcher, but it doesn't always mean you're good or you're an all-star at that position. He's a great player considered because of his offense. And
yeah.
that's really where it stops.
What I was going to say earlier is that I think, to answer your question, you can have one hole in the lineup. Yes. But Jim Crane, I think, is literally trying to build the ultimate fantasy lineup, and he doesn't want any holes in the lineup. And whether that's Contreras, Murphy, or somebody, he didn't like of course, defensively and what he did with the pitchers and calling the staff where you had Christian Javier become the superstar and Framber Valdez rise to ace level. Yes, that's great. But at the end of the day, I think Jim Crane is like, okay, we need more offense from our catcher. What can we do? Furcus, what can we do? Let's go get Contreras. Maybe he can catch a little bit more, give us some more offense. And what can we do? We don't want to block these young guys and everything like that. So I know that we can go hours and hours talking about this, but I think that the Astros have a plan. They know what they're doing, whether it's Nimmo or Conforto or something like that. But you can bet they know what they're doing. And this episode is brought to you by Bet Online.
Yeah, so Bet Online is the place to go for all your sports wagering needs. If you want to look up things like props and odds, you don't want to go anywhere else. I mean, they even have props and odds on where players will land. who will sign what guys where, what's going to happen next year. Will there be another playoff run for the Astros? The sky's the limit with Bet Online. It's the only place that I go. If you love sports podcasts, you'll find them there as well. They're always the fastest and easiest way, whether it's soccer, basketball, football, esports, amateur sports, or pro. BetOnline.net has got you covered. So head to the website today and use your mobile device to check out the latest trends in action. Remember, BetOnline is where the game starts. Eric, if I'm a betting guy and I'm looking at the draft that just happened, you look at 1 through 18, we had the first ever lottery style draft in Major League Baseball history. Pittsburgh got number 1, and Pittsburgh has O'Neal Cruz at shortstop, and it sounds like they're going to have Crew Jones. That will be their Drew Jones will be their first pick overall if they go that way. And so Drew Jones is a stud outfielder, 18 years old. I'm sorry, not Drew Jones. I'm looking at the 2022 draft. They are. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was about to say that I think that was last year, and I think he got hurt.
I'm sorry. Yes, I had the wrong list in front of me. My apologies.
Yeah,
Dylan Cruz from LSU, outfielder. Yeah, I didn't think that was right. Sorry, I had my 22 list pulled up, not my 23 list. But Dylan Cruz, they'll have Dylan Cruz and O'Neal Cruz on their team. The Pirates are trying to build something. The Pirates have just been so irrelevant baseball wise for so long. But it's Pittsburgh, Washington, Detroit, Texas, who's spending like a drunken sailor, Minnesota, Oakland, and Cincinnati. So there's really only one team in there that's really starting to try to contend. All the other teams are pretty much, I think, at the bottom. I think unless Minnesota signs Correa and adds some pieces, they're kind of in a rebuild phase as well.
Yeah, the Twins are the kind of surprise there. They got the luck of the draw, so to speak, and they moved up a little bit. Rangers in a way, but most of the teams are kind of where they're supposed to be. But I think the Astros won a World Series. Shouldn't they get the number 1 pick? I mean, isn't that fair? I don't understand that. So I know that they have the Rule 5 draft tomorrow, and a lot of people are expecting the Astros to possibly lose a player. But you're thinking that the Astros may actually pick up a player in the Rule 5 draft?
Yeah, so in the Rule 5 draft, you can actually pick up a guy, and I was just looking through the left-handed pitchers, and so for those of y'all listening, I'll say the names. There's only a couple names I'm gonna pick out here, but there is a guy named by the name of Andrew Miziak. Sorry, he's with the Royals, and he was in AAA last year. I'm sorry, he's with the Guardians. He had a 2.04 ERA, 2.75 FIP. 1.2 whip, 61.2 thirds innings pitched, 90 strikeouts. He has a fastball. It sits 90-92, but he has an above average slider with deception. We have that kid right there, and then we have a kid who I like from the Tampa Bay Rays. You have Jose Lopez, who has a comp of Jose Alvarado. He has a plus slider. He has a plus fastball, 96-97. Throws 95 miles an hour. Again, he's a left-handed pitcher. Now, if you get someone like this, they're going to have to replace somebody like a Seth Martinez or something. But there might be some diamonds in the rough, and that's what we have to trust the Astros. The Astros player development is going to look at who's out there, and if they have someone that they can add of value.
So you're saying that they're trying to get Dusty Baker's lefty by the Rule 5 draft. That's an interesting concept.
Yeah, I mean, when I was talking to my friend Mark about it, and I said, is there anybody that the Astros could get? He's like, dude, there are some studs in the top. I mean, we get the 30th, so it's not like we're getting like pick 120 or pick 200. He goes, if they're available and they're basically major league ready, and you think they can add and have an effect immediately, heck yeah, you go get them, because that right there is kind of a dime a dozen kind of pitcher, and it could be a diamond in the rough. They may or may not get that, but the possibility is there to get something. It could be a wild card move.
All right. So I know that another news story today was that Masataka Yoshida posted today, and he's got teams got 30 days basically to sign him. He's a left-handed outfielder. He's 20 believe he's 29 years old. And so this is somebody that could come up and sign with any team. And if the Astros don't want to go trade or really sign a big name guy, maybe this is a guy they can look at. He makes great contact. He doesn't strike out a lot. And he had the highest OPS in the NPD in 2021 and 2022. So this could be a guy the Astros can go after. So that's another option. And I know that Scott Boras mentioned, go back to what we were talking about earlier. He said that Jim Crane, that he's been on the phone with Jim Crane a lot and a number of times, and they've been very attentive. So that just leads me to believe that there's been some conversation about some substantive conversation about Nimmo or Conforto. So the Astros are definitely out there looking for the left-handed bat. If they don't get Contreras, they're going to plan B. So we'll see what happens there. But I think that if you look at what the Cardinals manager is saying, Oliver Marmol, he's saying all the right things about trying to get Willson Contreras over there. So I'm not as sold as the Astros can outcharm the Cardinals in this situation because they can give him everyday catcher. Right now we have Martin Maldonado. Yes, he may not hit much, but he can mentor Corey Lee or Diaz, and he'll be free agent next year. And so if who knows what happens, but I think that Murphy is a great pick, and there's just so much to discuss. And it's like, it's crazy that there's so much up in the air, but nothing's happening. You know what I mean?
Right. We think nothing's happening because our level of understanding of something happening is someone actually signs, right?
Right.
But there's so much going on. And that's what a lot of people don't understand is there are so many conversations that happen before the actual conversation. With Carlos Baerga putting out the stuff on Instagram about the Giants possibly looking at long-term deals or 5 to 6 year deals with both Correa and Judge. I mean, nobody's really talking about that. We don't hear the backroom conversations. We don't hear the cell phone call that's, hey, let me, I'm going to call this agent. And if you go back and watch Moneyball and you watch how Billy Beane is working the phones, he calls one guy and says, hey, you want him? You got him? Okay, good. And then he calls the other team. Oh, you wanted that guy? He's gone. They already took him. I mean, they are playing each other's hands. They are trying to expose what the other wants. And the major leagues, the Cardinals are trying to catch the Braves. The Phillies and the Mets are trying to catch the Braves with what they've got going on there, even though the Phillies won the World Series. And everybody else is really trying to catch the Astros. And there's no telling like what the Yankees are doing. I mean, there's no word from them. I think ultimately Judge is a Yankee more than likely or a Giant. I wouldn't be surprised if Carlos Correa ended up with the Giants, if he ended up with the Orioles, or if he ended up with the Dodgers. I think those are the three teams I have Carlos Correa going to. Mitch Haniger going to San Francisco. Wow. I mean, they're really making some moves, and maybe they're going to add another outfielder. So we don't know. It's fun to watch. We thank y'all for tuning in. We just try to give you the information that's up to date as much as we can. And we try not to swing and miss. We try to give you accurate stuff. So thank y'all for tuning in to Locked On Astros. We want you to consider Locked On Astros your first listen, and then your second listen of the day, we ask you to go to Locked On Sports Today, because Locked On Sports Today has everything, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. For myself and Eric Huysman,
I have one more comment. Part of me thinks that John Heyman tweeted that out to put pressure on the Yankees, because the Yankees fan base probably raised holy you know what. And so I think that John Heyman's probably a Yankees fan. So he's probably like, I want Aaron Judge with the Yankees. What can I do? Let me put a tweet out there. So
I don't know, man. I would hope not. I would think if he did that on purpose, he should probably be fired, to be honest with you, because that's a pretty big mistake.
All right, that's all we got for this edition of the Locked On Astros podcast, and we will see you tomorrow. And go Stros! And I know it's the end of the winter meeting, so we'll see what happens. Rule 5 draft. Will the Astros sign somebody? Will the Astros trade for somebody? This is the fun time of the year. Why don't you join us?